Good afternoon everyone and welcome this afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Judd and I'm the Director of Pegram Judd. I'm very pleased to be your Master of Ceremonies today for this very exciting launch of the design competition for Immigration Place. My business partner Annabelle Pegram is the competition advisor, and together we're very strong supporters of this initiative which celebrates the immigrant story for Australia. And as both of us are of migrant heritage, our family story is also part of that story. For my part, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're meeting on today and to pay respect to them. But I'd like to officially welcome you to country. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Auntie Susan Berry, a Ngunnawal elder. Thank you, Auntie Susan.
Today I would like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people, the United Ngunnawal Elders Council, all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and non-Indigenous friends here today. Thank you for inviting me to conduct the Welcome to Country. For those who may not be aware, Welcome to Country is a protocol which is ancient. Before entering another person's country, one would also always announce your arrival and not enter until the traditional owners welcomed you. The reason for this practice is to protect your spirit and to show respect for the people for whose country you are entering. The Ngunnawal people are the traditional owners of the ACT and region. As with all Aboriginal communities, our community is made up of several family groups who represent the interests of the Ngunnawal people. Now I would like to read to you a charter that's been developed by Ngunnawal Elders in 2003. I hope it is inspiration to you in the work that you do. United Ngunnawal Elders Charter. Our unity is a journey of healing, and we have taken the first big step, and along the path people will join with us and lead, but everyone is welcome. In welcoming people, we know the following to be true: that our elders have our respect, we are honoured by their giving respect back, we acknowledge them for assuming responsibility as leaders in our community. We need to come together to create our future, one in which everyone has a place where they can feel proud, have dignity and feel they belong. That communication is everything, and we do this in a supportive way to know more about each other, our history and our culture. These knowledges we make are ours together, although it belongs not only to us, but it's also for our kids and grandkids too. And it is for them that we do this work now. It takes courage to do work for the greater good. We need to learn how to solve problems, include, not isolate, to listen with our hearts and speak with our souls. In being courageous, we are drifting back to the dream time, and this is the essence of Aboriginality, as is our relationship to the land. In this journey, we strive for unity. We do this by empowering people, creating confidence, self-esteem, and room for difference, so we can work and laugh together, moving forward all the while. We, each and every one of us, want this, not only for ourselves and our families, we want this too for people who need it the most. So on behalf of all Ngunnawal people, both past and present, I am happy to welcome all of you here today to the lands of the Ngunnawal people. May the spirit of this land comfort, heal and guide us. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie Susan. Well, every significant venture has a project leader, a very special project leader, a person who commits themselves to the completion of a worthy project and who manages to hold the concept and all of the parties together. Immigration Place Australia is very fortunate to be led by such a person. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to introduce to you today Lieutenant General Laurie O'Donnell.
Thank you, Susan, for the welcome to country. Very much appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and friends all, I'm delighted to be here today to welcome you all on behalf of the Board of Immigration Place Australia. In particular, we welcome Brendan Smith, MLAs Brendan Smith, Nicole Lauder, Alistair Coe, and Chris Burke. An apology was received from Senator Zed Gelder, who couldn't make it at the last minute because the Senator is sitting, of course, and he didn't give him time off. And of course, we have also an apology from Malcolm Snow, the Chief Executive of the National Capital Authority. I didn't catch up with David. David, David, Fricker here. He must be an apology also from the National Archives. We have, I think, a representative of the National Archives sitting around here somewhere. He's hiding over there. And the lady as well. Well, thank you. Welcome. I also would like to make a special welcome to our wonderful patron, Vince Sorrenti, who's decided to be with us today, and we'll hear more about Vince in a moment, I'm sure, from him. I acknowledge my fellow members of the Immigration Place Australia Board here today, Graham French, who's the Deputy Chair, Imans Tillers, Emmanuel Nataris, our Treasurer, Jeff Boland, who's come up from down south, Johnny de Bortley, who also came from Coombe, and Richard Lawson, who's one of our members. And also, of course, our student advisors, Annabelle Pegram and Elizabeth Joe. We welcome you too. Arriving here this morning has been a long and at times daunting, if you like, journey for all of us. The idea of Immigration Place was first raised some 5 years ago, when the bridge proposal was not supported. And I can say in all honesty that over those years, our commitment to this proposal has never really wavered. Because we are all deeply committed to the idea and realisation of a commemorative place in our national capital to recognise Australia's immigrant past and future. Immigration Place will celebrate our immigrant heritage and our collective achievements. It will be a place of reflection and of welcome. Australia is a nation rich in history and people. Our national identity reflects the vibrancy and vitality of shared experience and journey. Central to our unique cultural landscape is the role that immigrants have played in the development of our political, social and economic lives. The story of immigration is one of family, tradition, opportunity and wisdom. It speaks of courage, ingenuity, sacrifice and inspiration. It celebrates diversity and innovation. It honours and respects individual contributors, knowledge and experience. The Board of Immigration Place Australia has been collecting stories from immigrants for many years. We currently have some 1,600 stories published on our website. All are fascinating and speak of the achievement of many at many levels. We now have a wonderful and prominent site adjacent to this special building, Kings Avenue. We thank the government for reserving this site for the project. Today also marks the beginning of the design journey, with the launch of a call for expressions of interest for architects and landscape architects to participate in a select design competition. It is also the launch of our new brand and website. Of significance today, we bring a new face and personality to Immigration Place. We were very pleased and proud to also introduce and welcome our patron, Mr. Vince Sorrenti, one of Australia's most loved and leading comic entertainers. For those who may not have had the pleasure of catching one of his marvellous performances, Vince has won the coveted Mo Award for Australia's Best Stand-Up Comic 5 times. Well done. He's also a graduate of architecture, and I know he has taken a keen interest in designs to Immigration Place. Vince Sorrenti is an outstanding Australian whose family, heritage and personal achievement is a model story in our rich history of immigration. Thank you, Vince, for accepting our invitation to be the Immigration Place patron. Over the years, we've been supported by our ambassadors, foundation registrants, donors and sponsors, including PricewaterhouseCoopers, who have been the business advisors to the board. We are truly grateful to you one and all. I'd also like to thank the National Archives, who have provided support in the development of our design aspirations and who have sponsored the venue today so that you can easily visit the site and begin to imagine its future. And 2, I thank the National Capital Authority for the support for this project. To realise any project of this scale, we need the donations. We're delighted to have achieved tax deductibility through the tax office with DGR, which is deductible gift recipient status. So spread the word and help us to get those much needed cash donations flowing into the kitty so that we can get on with the project. So welcome everyone and thank you for attending this launch.
Thank you, Laurie. Now, for as long as I can remember, and in fact probably even longer than that because he used to babysit me when I was only 1 year old, I've admired and been a little bit in awe of our Immigration Place patron, Vince Sorrenti. He's brought laughter and a sort of national self-awareness into many of our lives. He's held the comic mirror up to our cultural identity on many stages and to many audiences. He's always positive and always the quintessential New Australian. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and the clandestine owners of the land. Eddie Obeid, I think, is he? Maybe. First of all, let me start by saying how delighted I am to accept this patronage, to be asked to be the patron of this important project. It brings together three things that are very much a part of my profile: architecture, of course, immigration, and maybe not so much comedy. I'll leave that to the Palmer United party. I'll divert to Clive on that. It is a thrill to be involved in this scheme. I think it's a very important scheme, and I hope I can add some credibility to it. Credibility is not something that comics generally have. We're not held in very high esteem by the community. I'm not asked to sit on too many boards or take part in too many government projects. We were joking in the car on the way over here that when you get your passport photograph verified, it's usually by a GP or an accountant or a doctor or even a pharmacist, but never would you have or a comedian on there. So it is a thrill to be doing something semi-serious like this, although, you know, I did study architecture and I'm very proud of that. A former tutor and a former lecturer of mine are in the room. And let me just say about that you're a lot safer watching me on stage in one of my buildings. So as an architect, I think I made a very good comedian. So look, when I first learned about the Immigration Place Australia project, I couldn't help thinking it's about bloody time. It's hard to believe that in the capital of a nation whose entire modern history is the product of immigrants, there is not some physical recognition of immigration. If you take an even bigger view of this continent's history, immigration is its defining characteristic. Of all the populated places on the planet, of all the places on Earth where people can live, this continent was shaped by arrivals. Humanity arrived here very early, and the modern world arrived here very late. My perspective is that of someone whose parents arrived after World War II. That wave of immigration changed the landscape that has been created by previous waves of immigration, and successive waves have continued to do the same. A lot is said about the influences of new cultures to our shores. I believe not enough is said about the influence of Australian culture on our immigrants. Our nation's character is very resilient. We adopt aspects of the cultures of recent arrivals, but it's the way that these new arrivals turn into Aussies that I find most remarkable. It's wonderful to be eating Afghani food and absorbing the teachings of Allah and Buddha, but I get a bigger kick out of seeing a Sudanese Australian take a mark in the AFL or hearing a Cambodian speak with a broad Aussie accent. They change us and we change them. Change is why people come to a country. The opportunity motivates them to take advantage. Immigrants work hard, they make a contribution, then after a few generations, they turn into the rest of us. That re-energisation of Australian life is at the very core of the immigration story. The enthusiasm they inject is the stimulus that drives the country forward. My mother and father left a post-war Italy where opportunities were almost non-existent. My father arrived in Sydney as a 20-year-old with a 5th grade education. He has loved this country for the last 62 years. He owns a house, has travelled the world and raised children who have multiple university degrees. He legally became an Aussie after 5 years, but in many respects became an Aussie straight away. He read and spoke English within a very short period of time. So fluent was Frank at the lingo that he would often apply for jobs for people he knew. No wonder New South Wales Rail is in such a parlous state. Many of them owed their careers to a young bloke named Frank Sorrenti in the mid-1950s. I'm very excited to be a part of this project, in particular its architectural element. It's going to form a very important part of the Canberra landscape, and I think it's an onerous task and a responsibility that should be left to someone who wins a design competition. So I think immigration is a part of our nation's psyche and now fittingly will form part of the physical landscape of our national capital. So expressions of interest in the design competition I now declare open. Thank you very much.
We're all very excited about the prospects of this competition and confident in the results that it's going to achieve, particularly given the aspirations for the project. Immigration Place aspires to provide a rich commemorative experience that will celebrate the continuing contribution of immigrants to Australia's cultures, values and identities. It will be a place to stimulate interest in the migrant story, building cultural awareness and engaging with the public, young and old, to foster mutual understanding. And of course, one of the magic ingredients for any competition is the jury. And so to round off this launch, I'm very pleased to introduce the Deputy Chairman of the Immigration Place Australia Board, Graham French, otherwise known as our fearless project advocate, to tell you a little bit more about our fabulous jury. Thank you, Graham.
Well, first, as Deputy Chair of IPA, I'd like to thank all of those in attendance at today's launch of the competition, in particular, Vince Sereni. And finally, and in advance, the members of the jury, the competition jury. We have a remarkable group of people who are going to judge this competition, and I'm sure that will add to the value of the competition. Immigration Place Australia has emerged from a dormant period. The recent acceptance by Vince to our patron, this competition and the experience of the jury will, I am sure, be the rejuvenation of this great venture. Vince Sereni, I have certain links with, even though very distant. He has a degree in architecture. He was born in 1961, the same year that I graduated as an architect. He played rugby at Sydney Uni, as I did 26 years earlier. More importantly, we are both descendants from migrants to this great country, as indeed we all are. And that is in effect the fundamental objective of IPA. Vince, thank you sincerely for your encouraging talk, your acceptance of being our honorary patron and figurehead of IPA, and I know your participation will greatly assist us to achieving our objectives. Finally, I look forward as a member of the board of being part of this jury, and I feel a little bit, well, there are so many great people on it, and I maybe just sit and listen. But I think it is time that I introduce who they are, and the chair, Kerry Clare, who is the Director of Clare Design, Sydney, Professor at the School of Architecture, plus Built Environment, the University of Newcastle, multiple recipient of Design Awards for Excellence, and together with her husband Lindsay Clare, a gold medal recipient of the Australian Institute of Architects, the most prestigious award made by the Institute. Howard Tanner, Professional Fellow of the University of Canberra, and an award-winning Sydney-based architect, well known for his books, articles and exhibitions on architecture, and for his award-winning designs and heritage expertise. Professor Alec Dazan, who is Dean of the University of New South Wales Built Environment Programs, a Professor of Practice and the Director of Dazan Associates, another multiple award-winning architecture and urban design practice. Graham Dick, a Director of Sydney-based multidisciplinary and multi-award-winning design studio Johnson Pilton Walker, and Project Director for the National Portrait Gallery and for the National Workers' Memorial in Kings Park. Adrian McGregor, Principal of McGregor Coxall, Landscape Architecture and Urban Design, nominated as one of Sydney's 100 Most Creative People, author, lecturer and founder of BioCityStudio.com. Oliver Kratzer, celebrated industrial designer, founder of Ideal Industrial, former National President of the Design Institute of Australia and a guest judge on ABC's TV's New Inventors. Malcolm Snow, Chief Executive of the National Capital Authority and a planner and landscape architect, recognised for his advocacy for creating better cities. And finally, a compatriot on our board, Armand Stillers, one of Australia's most internationally successful contemporary artists. His work was the subject of a major retrospective at the National Gallery of Australia, and recently he collaborated with Michael Nelson Jacamara in a display at the Musée de Catane, France, and he is a fellow member of the Board of Immigration Place Australia. I think that with that name, a list of names, most people, we are sure to get an outstanding group of people in the final five of our competition. And we look forward to the outcomes, and certainly I do, and ultimately seeing something on this site out here that is a benefit to Australia and to the national capital. Thank you.
Now please tell all of your designer friends and relatives about this competition. The EOI closes on the 12th of December and the winning design of the shortlisted participants will be announced in March next year on Harmony Day. You'll be able to watch the progress of the project, share your stories, and as the chairman recommended, donate to the project via the new website, the banner of which you can see behind me on the screen. I'd also like to thank the team at Goosebumps Design for all the work they've done on the competition website and new website. It's really fantastic. Thank you all for attending today. I'd really encourage you all to take the opportunity to view the site and to have a walk around, to imagine what it might be with all of your help and support in the near future, a wonderful commemorative place for all immigrants to Australia.